I've never been to Sardinia. Have you? Well, Erik recently got back from a sailing trip in Sardinia, and today he's going to tell us all about it.
Welcome to the What Could Go Right podcast. We are your hosts, Erik, Orton.
And I'm Emily Orton.
And here we talk about personal growth and sailing. In 2014, we moved aboard a fixer-upper sailboat and bootstrapped a year sailing with our 5 kids, and it changed our lives forever.
We tell the whole story in our memoir, our book, 7 at Sea. On this podcast, we want to help you go from fear to freedom, one adventure at a time. So you just got back from Sardinia. It was a little bit dramatic. I know we recently had a podcast about becoming grandparents, and while you were there, we became grandparents, and you raced back, and it was very exciting. And it was so fun to welcome our grandson and all of that. But now let's, just kick back and relax. And I want to learn a little bit more about Sardinia. I wasn't on this trip. I've never been there. So maybe just start by even telling us, what is that, its own country, or like what is it?
Yeah, I think the first time I'd heard of Sardinia was when we were kind of living in Greece with our friends, the Alonsos, on their boat, and they were going to take their boat across the Mediterranean to Portugal, and we were going to do a van trip through Europe and meet back up with them in Portugal. And John kept telling me, oh yeah, and we're going to sail around Sardinia. We're going to sail Sardinia. He kept saying Sardinia like I was supposed to be like, ooh, Sardinia. Yeah. And I knew nothing about it at the time. And I did not know that it is just one of the most amazing places in Europe, in the Mediterranean specifically. And so now I know why John was trying to emphasize it so much as kind of a cool spot, because once I started to look into it as a place to possibly do a trip, I realized I fell in love with it just looking at the pictures. I mean, first of all, it's an island that belongs to Italy. It's west of the tip of the boot if you look at the mainland Italy. So it's kind of northwest of Sicily and it's southwest of Rome, if that helps you. And directly above it is Corsica, which I have since learned is a French island. So Corsica and Sardinia are right there next to each other. But it very much has its own culture and its own kind of just vibe, I guess.
So I remember months before this trip, you sending me reels or links or showing me videos of like, I just can't believe this place is real. When you say it has its own vibe, like how would you describe the vibe of Sardinia?
Well, one of the things that gets me most excited about it is the fact that, first of all, you have this beautiful coastal sailing along the edge of Sardinia.
So you're always in sight of land, basically.
Yeah, you're always close to land. We're not doing any big crossings. But I also love rock climbing and rocks in general. And it's just got this rocky granite coastline that's boulders and little islands right off the, kind of like teeny islands off the main coast. And what you don't see a lot of in the Mediterranean, which is kind of blue turquoise water. You see a lot of that in the Caribbean. You definitely see it in the Bahamas, but you don't see a lot of it in the Mediterranean, and you do see it in Sardinia. And probably the most famous, at least sailing spot, is on the northern end, and it's called the La Maddalena Archipelago, and it's a couple of islands. The main town on the island of, Sardinia is big enough that it has 3 airports. It's a big island.
Wow. Okay.
And we were
That's like New York City.
Yeah. When we were on the north end, we flew into a city called Olbia, Olbia, and then we sailed north from there up to the very northern tip of Sardinia to an area called La Maddalena, there's a national park, which is the La Maddalena Archipelago, and it's just, anyway, that's kind of where we were.
And this is what we call a scouting trip, because I'd never been there. You'd never been there. You certainly never had sailed there prior. Mm-hmm. And so this was the first time. And I remember when I was writing the email about it, I said that it was an archipelago because that's what I had read on the internet. And you said, it's not an archipelago. It's just an island. And then you came back and said, archipelago again. And I was like, so it is an archipelago. So what did we learn? I mean, it's a scouting trip, right? So Tell me about that, what you learned about that.
Yeah, so the main island of Sardinia is not an archipelago, but just off the coast of Sardinia is this beautiful archipelago. It's just it's a small chain of islands that are kind of shallowly connected. The water is very shallow between them, I guess is what I'm trying to say, which is why you get that turquoise and beautiful sand. And so there's the main island, which is not an archipelago, but adjacent to it is this national park archipelago.
Okay, so if you're keeping track at home, internet 0, Erik 1. The internet was wrong about it being an archipelago,
Yes.
but you were right about it being an island next to an archipelago.
There we go. There we go.
Awesome. Okay. I'm curious, what was maybe some of the experience of the people who came with you? Had any of them ever been to this region or like this exact place before? And what was surprising?
None of us had been to Sardinia before. A couple of the folks on board had been to Europe before and Greece. In fact, one of my friend Sandy, who sailed with us a couple times now, she loves spending big chunks of time in Greece, and so she knows she's spent a lot of time in the region. But for some people, it was their first time to Europe, and so it was the whole gamut of people who kind of spend a part of their year in Europe. Some people who had never been there before at all, and it was a really fun to and I. Sorry to finish that sentence. It was really fun for everyone to experience it in their own way. And I've spent a fair bit of time in Europe, and it was fun for me to go back and see things that are familiar. The Lidl grocery store, the Decathlon sort of outfitting shop.
You must go to Decathlon if they have it where you are in Europe. Also, let me know if you're there because I need a new backpack.
It's like if Walmart and REI had a baby, it would be Decathlon. And it's just the funnest store to go into. And you can spend money and not feel too bad because you never spend too much just because things are so well priced.
Yeah,
but
it's
they're
good.
Pretty good quality.
Yeah, good quality stuff for a low price so that everybody can be engaged in these outdoor sports. And when I say I need a new backpack, I mean, I bought that one in like 2017 or 2018 or something. And I wear it every day. So my zipper finally broke this week. Anyway, I'm also curious with this group, and I know every trip is a little different. Every trip is custom, and every trip is really based on what the people aboard are most interested in. But what would you say was kind of the ratio of water time, like whether you're sailing or snorkeling or swimming, to time being on land and maybe even interacting with the local population?
Yeah. So this trip is probably a little bit more land-based than others. I think Europe in general, because there's so much interesting stuff on shore. When we go to more remote places like Mexico or the Bahamas, it's really just about being out in kind of distant, remote nature. Mm-hmm. But here we came into a town, and as I'm taking my cab from the airport to the marina, which is the airport's super close. It's like 15 minutes from town, and if that. And I come in and there's this beautiful kind of main boulevard that's lined with palm trees. There's a town Ferris wheel that's super festive. It's all lit up with neon colors. And there's an old town district that's just cobblestone streets, and they don't even let cars in it during certain hours of the day. And it's just lined with what you sort of the quintessential open air restaurants that you think of in Europe and gelato shops. And so there's a lot to see just being in town at the marina. And the marina was maybe a 5 to 7 minute walk from this main boulevard that I'm telling you about. So there was a lot to see the day we arrived, and I got there a day early and just kind of went out to dinner at a restaurant as a group before we cast off, and had a really, really nice time. We actually ate at this restaurant that's right next to this old historic church that has this beautiful multicolored dome, and it's all built out of stone, and just, sort of lighten the piazza type.
If you know that musical.
And then when we went sailing, we got into kind of harder to reach areas, and there are a lot of boats there. It's a very popular sailing spot, and so we were never really alone. And in fact, they encouraged us to anchor near other boats, because there's a lot of rules and regulations, and the people at the base were kind of like, there's like there's the written rule and then there's the enforced rule. And they said if you're off by yourself, sometimes the police or whatever will come around and they'll sort of ping you for small things. But if you're with a group, they're lazy and they don't want to have to talk to everybody, so they'll leave you alone.
Yeah, this is not our personal opinion. This was the opinion shared locally.
Yeah, this was just sort of advice from, the locals. They said this is kind of, one way to navigate your trip here. And so we ended up, and there were lots of people out on the water. And so we would anchor and there would be people on the beaches, so we'd anchor in a cove and there would be people on the beaches that would come in from other parts of the island just to spend the day at the beach. But then sun goes down, they go away. And we also kicked our trip off on a weekend. So there was a little bit more foot traffic on the beaches because it was the weekend. But then as we got into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, things were a little bit quieter. And we really had chances to be remote without a lot of hubbub. There were not restaurants on shore for the most part until we got back to, I think it was our second to last night. We did go into the main town of Madalena, and that was super fun. There's restaurants, bars, kind of like a main plaza. There's ferries coming and going where people are driving their cars onto the ferries, and street music going on. And I played some music in the streets, and we just we hung out. I was walking down the street with my guitar in one group in a restaurant, like, hey, stop! Hey, play us a song. And
I feel like something like that would not happen in the United States. Like, we've been to most of the states. I feel like we carry instruments everywhere, but Europe is really known for street music. Like, you expect it pretty much anywhere you're going to go in Europe, and it might be different instruments in Greece than maybe what they have, by country to country, but they saw you with a guitar and immediately made the request, hey, will you play for us? And you did, and it was so fun.
It was. Yeah, Italians are, sort of stereotypically social, and I found that to be true. And they're very warm and welcoming. And, of course, everyone has their own personality, but it's a very open culture, and it was easy to talk with people and just figure things out, make friends, get answers.
And you don't speak Italian.
I do not speak Italian, but I tell you, Google Translate came in clutch several times and for a lot of us, we would say, like you'd get into a cab and he'd be like, no, understand.
Yeah.
And so I would say something into my phone. Google Translate would type it out in Italian. I would just show it to him. He'd be like, okay, we go.
And you never got punched in the face or Google Translate did not let you down.
No. And yeah, so literally I had, when we got our provision order for the sailing trip, the lady who I was trying to pay said she didn't understand. So she just typed out what she wanted to say, showed it to me on her phone. I was like, okay. And I responded back, and we were able to communicate just fine. A lot of people do speak English, but not everybody, but it's really easy to get by.
That's so cool. So it sounds like you had plenty of time being able to interact with the locals in various different cities, or like not cities, but little towns or villages around this very large island, not archipelago, Sardinia. And then you also had opportunities to be remote. You had opportunities to eat authentic local cuisine, especially gelato. I know that's a favorite. Maybe, I don't know if you count that as cuisine, but I mean, gelato was a huge favorite.
Yes.
And you also had times when you were remote and could quietly, just as your own group, prepare these meals. And I saw some of the pictures and they looked so good. You had a massive grill for doing like a dozen hamburgers at once if you wanted on board this gorgeous boat. And you had garlic bread made on crusty French bread, and you just
and we
had
grilled veggies on the.
Oh yeah, you were cooking up. Sorry, it's not all meat and carbs,
bread.
Folks. Like, we plan these meals. There's salad, there's vegetables, and usually plenty of fruit and yogurt and nuts and snacks and treats. And so there was that as well. I did want to note that there was one treat which you could just get a little taste of Europe right now where you are, and imagine you're in Sardinia. Just like look at some pictures either from our Instagram or from, Googling Sardinia or the archipelago of Madalena, and then have this treat, which this was the biggest surprise to me, that nobody on this crew, whether they had frequented Europe or not had this treat for the first time. Nutella.
Yeah.
Yeah. When
Try
we were
Nutella.
growing up, that was definitely something that mostly only military families knew about. Their kids had lived in Europe and they knew about Nutella. And so they would get it at specialty shops or it would come into the military based grocery stores. But now you can buy it at Costco. It's pretty much available anywhere. And it is a European favorite. Nutrition wise, it compares pretty comparably to peanut butter.
To like Skippy peanut
Like
butter.
to regular, yeah, like
regular sugared up peanut butter.
Yeah, regular name brand peanut butter. But they found Nutella in Sardinia, and that is something that can never be undone.
Yeah.
They can continue to enjoy that.
Another thing that I'll add in terms of the sailing conditions there, it was much better than I thought. There was really good wind, almost more wind than the base was comfortable. They actually called us in a day early because they said it was going to get really windy. But apparently between the northern end of Sardinia and Corsica, which is just to the north, is this big wind funnel that comes down out of Europe. So you've got the Alps on mainland Europe on the east side, and you got the Pyrenees Mountains on the west. And the wind comes down from between those mountains, and then it comes down and it funnels right in between Corsica and Sardinia. And so you have really, really strong winds, which can almost be too strong. And I won't get too technical, but we ended up sailing and we reefed our mainsail, which I have never done before on one of these trips. It's basically mean putting up a portion of the mainsail instead of the full thing, because having too much sail up you can tear your sails. Sails can only hold so much wind pressure.
So if people are getting nervous listening to you right now, thinking, okay, I'm never sailing in Sardinia because Sardinia has too much wind, what do you say?
It's all manageable.
Yeah.
It's all manageable. In fact, when I was leaving, one of my favorite video clips that I have from the trip is I was talking to the operations manager. He was on the boat as we were pulling out, and then he hopped off, and I was kind of telling him our plan, which was to head north to Maddalena and then kind of work our way south. And he's like, oh yeah, good plan. And I was like, when the local operations guy sort of gives you a nice green check mark, that's always a good thing. And that's what we did. And so one of the things that's a constant with these trips is always taking in the local information once we arrive, because there's only so much that you can know about and plan in advance. There's always a safe way to get through whatever's happening. You just have to be nimble and navigate. And navigation involves adapting to the current circumstances of the moment. And that's what we do. And so we had a great time. We had a variety of, we had quiet days where we mostly just kind of motored upwind. Other days when we were way out, in the channel, having a great crosswind sail. But every night we're tucked into a safe, comfortable spot. And some days we were close to town. Sometimes we were a little bit out on our own.
Like
a little
nestled
bit
up to
remote.
an island or something.
Oh yeah. Like you could 50, 70 feet from the island, you could jump and swim to shore if you wanted. Super easy and comfortable. So,
and sometimes people were going to the spa. They're like, oh, we're on shore. I think I'm going to go do the spa.
Oh yeah. We got back to Olbia a day early, and everyone's like, oh, I'm going to go freshen up. And 3 or 4 of the crew went and booked a whole spa outing, and everybody went on the Ferris wheel, and we got more gelato. And so there's never a dull moment unless you are wanting to be bored for the sake of relaxing. There's something to do, but you never have to do something.
Yeah, I love it. Well, it sounds amazing. It sounds beautiful. It sounds like you had a great time. Do you feel like you're going to return to Sardinia?
If people want to go, I want to go again.
Okay, awesome. Well, if you want to go to Sardinia, just let Erik know. I want to be one of those people who goes to Sardinia. Let's go again. Yeah. Oh, one of my favorite things actually was one of the guys on this Sardinia trip had posted a picture of himself at the helm, and one of his friends commented on it and said, they let you drive? Oh my gosh, yes. Like that is one of the main reasons behind this trip, or why you would want to choose to go with us instead of like, oh, I'm just going to hire some random captain somewhere. This is for you to have a chance to hands-on explore, be at the helm, try out all the things, dropping anchor, raising anchor, switching the sails back and forth. If you want to learn about the water makers or how the engines work, like, yes, it's an open boat to you. And you might come on not knowing too much, but being sailing curious, and you will end your trip not only having made great friends, been into beautiful locations, eaten delicious food, and had an amazing indoor-outdoor adventure, but you will know quite a bit about sailing and have had opportunities to do it if that's your jam.
If you want to. Yeah. As soon as we were about 100 feet off the dock, I said, hey, Melissa. Melissa had sailed with me before. I was like, you want to drive the boat? And she got at the helm, and I just kind of hung around, made sure we were on a good heading. But I like to get the crew in the saddle, so to speak, as soon as possible and spend as much time there as they want to.
Yeah. So it's super supportive, friendly, encouraging environment. And you have a knowledgeable, charming captain. So if you're thinking about Sardinia, just ask yourself, what could go right?
Hey guys, it's Erik. Before we sign off today, I just wanted to share with you two things. First of all, I want to share with you some thoughts, some takeaways from the folks that actually joined us on our Sardinia trip. So at the end of the next few podcasts, I'm going to be sharing some clips directly from them. Also, we've had some shifts in our January sailing trips to the Virgin Islands. 2 trips. Each one has had 1 cabin's worth of people have to shift to another time. So January 20th through the 25th, we now have 1 cabin available for 2 people if you want to join us on that trip. Also, if you want to join us January 27th through February 1st, 2 folks also had to switch, so now there's a cabin available on that trip. So the last 2 weeks of January, if you want to sail on the British Virgin Islands, it's a beautiful time of year. It's 85 degrees, sunny, windy, like good sailing wind. So anyway, if you're interested in that, email me at hello@theawesomefactory.nyc, or you can DM me on Instagram, or just go to our website /sailing, and you can click up a time to speak directly. Anyway, love to welcome you aboard. So what's something that was different than what you expected? And you've been on this trip before, so you know a little bit more than most people.
What was different was we got to stop at different little ports and get off. For the last time it was all remote, so that was a lot of fun. That was a little bit different. Learning new card games, that was fun for me. We didn't play any games the last time, so that was a lot of fun. And getting to know everybody from different places was a lot of fun for me. And I get to go visit everybody now in different places.
Yeah.
So that's fun. And the blue water was amazing. That was bluer than I expected it to be. That was good. Yeah, I had a great time.
Awesome. Any takeaways? Anything that you feel like you learned?
I learned I just want to keep on doing it and come back.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, and if you were to pick 1 or 2 words to describe it, what would you say?
Extraordinarily amazing.
Oh.
Extraordinarily amazing. Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.